This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome to Dig on America, where we speak truth to power. Every week, we give you the dig on how American history, policies, and media created the social and political issues we face today. DOA is independent media supported by listeners.
So let's get into this week's dig. So for those who are new to the show, we cover a history or socio-political topic every week. This week, we are going to have run a little bit different. But what we normally do is as I read through this dig, if any of my co-hosts would like me to pause, they'll yell out pause. This one isn't as long, so I should be able to gun through most of it, but you can certainly feel free to stop me. After we're done with this, we'll kind of do a round robin and kind of give thoughts on this phenomenon. So with that being said, my 8th grade social studies teacher,
Mr. Humble,
taught me things that turns out after doing my own research wasn't exactly the whole story. And this week we will dive into the topic of cultural assimilation. So cultural assimilation is the process in which a minority culture gets absorbed into the dominant culture of a society. Let's just get this part out of the way quickly. While race is often amalgamated with culture, and it is more often a trait that is used to identify a cultural belonging, or more frequently to assume another's cultural belonging, race is not indicative of culture or of ethnicity. According to Penn State anthropologist Nina Jablonski, race is understood by most people as a mixture of physical, behavioral, and cultural attributes. Ethnicity recognizes differences between people mostly on the basis of language and shared culture.
Pause. There's only one race, Dutch. It's the human race. Okay?
And
so all these people who have all these degrees in different ethnicities, they're lying because there's only one race, the human race.
And the 100 meter dash.
But no, you say you like it, but I'm pausing because I think that's fucking bullshit. I think that's absolute dog wash fucking toilet water. Everyone is different, and that's good, and we should be happy about it, and it's not a problem. Having a problem with the differences, that's what makes you a baddie. But I don't want all of us to be the same. I want all of us to be ourselves. Because I want to be myself.
The dig is over. Mikey just finished the dig.
All right. See you later. Patreon. Bye.
So ethnicity recognizes differences between people, mostly on the basis of language and shared culture. In other words, race, which is, by the way, a relatively new social construct. Race has its origins in the 18th century from anthropologists and philosophers, and is often perceived as something biological inherited across generations. Cultural ethnicity, on the other hand, is typically understood as something we acquire or self-ascribe to based on factors like where we live or what religion we are. Closing out on race here, at least until we get to the great replacement theory's role in this conversation, is this. In the U.S. and some other countries, such as Canada, which just basically did whatever we did until a few years back, race is specifically political. Irish, Italian, and Polish Americans were not considered white until the 1900s.
What?
And Greeks...
That's just not true.
Sorry,
they were just called Americans back then.
Yeah, that's what our history books would tell you. And here's another one. Greeks were not considered white until around the 1980s. Even more astonishing than that, from today's lens at least, is that Arab Americans had been considered white until about the second half of the 20th century. You don't say.
Lies and deceit.
All lies, absolutely.
In this country, Mexican Americans were called white for quite a bit of time.
Yeah. They still do today say Caucasian, Hispanic, or non-Hispanic.
I'm that's what I am on my birth certificate and everything else. I'm a mutt, but I'm proud of my heritage.
Well, let's talk about heritage. So, again, it's culture. Anyway, Skepticism about whether new arrivals can assimilate into American society was a key concern in the 2016 presidential election and remains an ongoing theme in the public debate on immigration policy. This controversy is not new. The U.S. has experienced repeated waves of hostility towards immigrants, and today's concerns echo alarms often sounded in the past. As many in this country, and others to be fair, have viewed immigrants as a threat to the integrity of the nation's culture, fearing that foreigners somehow make America less American? Consider the following. Yeah, question mark? Ron Burgundy?
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Question. Consider the following statement. Quote, immigration is bringing the country people whom it is very difficult to assimilate and who do not promise well for the standard of civilization in the United States. Sounds like Trump? Nope. The speaker was Massachusetts Senator Henry Cabot Lodge in 1891.
Pause for 1 second. Paul, I'm going to give you a pause on this, and I'm going to tell you why I agree with this person.
Okay.
America, as it is currently formed, is probably a mistake because it is a United States thing. This nation is as big, if we go over to Europe, as several different countries. And it was designed to be several different countries. Because the United States is less than 250 years old, right? This experiment that we're currently doing with blending everyone into this melting pot, it's probably at some point going to fail. Oh. If we look at civilizations that succeed, like China, their country has an established religion, they have an established language. America has none of these things. We experimented with saying, hey, we're going to welcome everybody. We don't care what language you speak. We don't care what religion you are. We don't care. And we let everything in instead of saying this is what it is to be as American. So we really don't know what it is to be an American. We're still figuring it out. And that's the issue. So how can you really assimilate into something that really isn't clearly defined? Like you say, people like the right loves to say this is a Christian nation. No, the founding fathers made sure that it wasn't. They made sure to make it as ambiguous as possible so that when you come here, you can do whatever you want. Is that a recipe for success? We don't know that because we haven't existed long enough to know that. I mean, you know, what the Greeks did with their democracy, how'd that work out for them? Where are they now? Where are the Romans? You know, how'd that work out for them? So, and they were around for over 1,000 years. So us at 250 or under 250, we're still figuring out. So I agree that it should have been more clearly defined when they decided that we were going to be something, when they were making all these, you know, these amendments to this Constitution. They made this beautiful document that, you know, called people like me the 3/5 of a person or whatever. You know, they should.
Oh, you weren't even 3/5. You were property. You're not a person.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm like, no, that didn't come along until 3/5.
Oh, it took us a while to get to 3/5.
That was the amendment.
There's a lot of steps along the way.
Yeah, so it should. I believe if you were going to make a country, if we were starting this over, if we did a reset, you got to define all these things.
Enslave the white
country to be successful. Hey, I'm just saying. I could use a white slave, but no. I'm just saying. Yeah, you'd have to clearly define what your country is going to be if you want this thing, people to assimilate into what you call an American.
Well, it's interesting you say that because there's words in this dig later that will echo a little bit of that. So, but before we get to that, despite, again, we talked about he was talking about the quote from Henry Cabot Lodge in 1891, but despite the engraved words on the Statue of Liberty, which are, give me your tired, give me your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. We, as Americans, have not yet been particularly welcoming to most groups. And why would we be? We saw what happened to Native American culture and land when they welcomed us. In fact, we have been the opposite of welcoming to the unassimilated. Caricatures of Chinese immigrants, Polish and Irish immigrants, and of course blacks who were immigrated by force have peppered our media since the country was founded.
Pause. Who was it recently that said some stupid shit about like people, like black people emigrated here? I can't. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Where they were just like, it doesn't matter how you came to this country, but some people came.
It sounds
here
like a Larry
choice,
Elder quote.
They want to change the term to forced relocation.
Yeah, like the new spin now is that, well, everybody emigrated here. Well, what about the slaves? Well, that's a kind of immigrant. It's like, what the fuck? Is this revisionist history in live action?
Yeah, technically they immigrated by force, but they want to use they're trying to fit everything into a statistical model because they're fucking idiots. But
is it immigration or is it trafficking? Because I feel like those
Right.
are like that is human
That's a whole
trafficking.
different-
Forced immigration would be a form of trafficking. Yeah. So
Or is trafficking the new immigration?
But I just feel like the word immigration suggests that there's some type of consent, like inherently. That's why I don't like the term like
Like you
forced
wanted to
immigration.
I don't like
because
it
it's
either.
like-
Words
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, because like I mean I get the
it's just
concept is the
migration.
same.
It's migration. Words matter.
Yeah, that's why I say
Yeah.
like it's not that it's
Migrants.
wrong. It's just
Yeah.
not. Even if it's forced immigration, it's still not immigration. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or at least to
I'm
me.
with you.
Okay,
Well,
I'll find the clip and I'll put it in the group chat.
Yeah, please. All right. So
Whatever
I'll
Yahoo
move on
was.
I'll move on while you do that. Where was it? Okay. So during the Great Depression, as many as 1 million Mexican Americans were deported under the pretext that they were to blame for the economic downturn. And a few years later, we threw Japanese Americans into internment camps. According to a YouTuber by the name of Mr. Beat, who I really like and you should check out, cultural assimilation, he gave what I thought in my research was the best and easiest definition. Cultural assimilation doesn't even matter, as immigrants at large already share American values, evidenced by the fact that they're actually coming here, and that the different cultures that they bring here are almost always beneficial to the nation. This is pretty much statistically proven.
Beneficial to who?
To the nation in general.
Oh, okay.
So one of the most common ways that immigrant families have assimilated into American culture is how they name their children. The question for this dig is, however, as Mr. Beat raised, why is this even necessary? So, in other words, should people even have to assimilate? I mean, after all, when Americans travel or move abroad, do we assimilate to other cultures? Or do we just expect those cultures to accept us as we are, speak our language, and create our own communities because we're special? A great example of this is Hawaii, which really only became a state due to the amount of white Americans whom had moved there and started their own communities. The word assimilate has its roots in the Latin word simulare, meaning to make similar. Make similar is the operative part. Immigrants are generally expected to become like other Americans, a process metaphorically described as a melting pot. But this term is problematic. After all, America has, from day one, had a heterogeneous population. So by what
Crazy
criteria is an outsider judged to fit in? What's the model? For some, assimilation is based on pragmatic shit like speaking English or achieving economic success. For the faith and flag crew, it runs deeper and involves relinquishing all ties to the old country, including language and even cuisine in your own home.
Pause. But don't let Cinco de Clinco come up. Now everybody loves Mexicans, right? And they're telling everybody Happy Mexican Independence Day, which is not what fucking Cinco de Mayo is. And if you guys don't fucking stop saying that shit.
Stop telling lies. It is a treacherous holiday.
It is.
People use it for drinking if they don't celebrate it in Mexico.
No.
It's not what
And
that
what
day
did
is.
Dr. Biden say? The culture is diverse as breakfast tacos.
Oh,
that was what Dr. Biden said. And you know what? I do call myself a hot tamale. But I can say that. Don't be telling me this. I mean, go to San Antonio. I'm sorry. I don't want to. That's not what I'm about.
That's not hers.
Yeah. But she didn't write it. She didn't write
But you
that speech.
to look at it, don't you?
She cannot read the words out loud with her mouth.
Look, know that Dr. Biden will read whatever is on the teleprompter.
Right. I was going to say.
Who put breakfast tacos on the teleprompter?
In San Antonio.
Right now,
in San Antonio.
Wow,
If you, I mean, obviously you guys have been involved with stuff. People read.
Don't call me a
They do
fucking
read
beaner.
over stuff. Like they do read what they do. I've been in politics. I've been on these campaigns. They do read that stuff. She wasn't surprised by that. No one threw that in there last minute. I think they thought it was a joke that would hit and land, and it. I mean,
but also, just practically, how many types of breakfast tacos are there? Exactly.
Well,
like it wasn't giving diversity.
Like there is a lot. If you live in, like I live in San Antonio, there's this argument constantly in San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Houston, Laredo. I lived down there for a while. Who has the best breakfast tacos? California, Tex-Mex. Which version of it? So like it is like a general over the top trending fight that goes on for like the last decade of who has the best breakfast tacos. Austin tends to be a little bit more like avocado and creme, and San Antonio is like barbacoa and just the meat and carnitas, that kind of stuff. And then you go up to Dallas and they've got like a different mix and crunchy tacos. And then you would know Houston better than me, Marissa, and some of the other areas. But they take their tacos seriously in Texas, and there's so many different versions. So breakfast tacos in the morning.
But if I'm somebody that's
like
the first
20.
lady is talking to in the Midwest, you can't just be
they
saying
wouldn't know.
That.
Right. They wouldn't even know. And so that's why I thought.
Because I'm like, girl, breakfast tacos, it's giving Jimmy Dean.
Yeah. No, oh girl, no. You cannot have Jimmy Dean in a breakfast taco in Texas. No. Maybe over like in
I don't even know. I would
some Dallas suburb, I guess. But no, she said I don't even know him. I don't know one Jimmy Dean. But yeah, basically I moved to Texas and I learned that breakfast tacos was like a fucking art form, and you don't mess it up and you don't tell. Like I grew up super basic. My mom had like the El Paso, like what is it called? The old El Paso, like picante sauce, and the McCormick
New York City.
Yeah, like we had the basic. Because when we obviously living on the reservation, when I lived on the reservation, we ate different food. Like because my biological dad is Choctaw. I said that in the pre-show, but most people do know that about me. So biological dad is 100% Choctaw. I don't look it, but I lived on the reservation. So when this whole talk to me, it goes back to my culture in general. What I see on reservations across the country, that you talk about revisionist history, talk about assimilating. I mean, our whole culture was taught to assimilate. The Thanksgiving and all that shit that's worse than the 4th of July and all of that to combine for us, because we literally watch it on TV. And that's why I'm glad that some people have chosen it to be Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day. But growing up, like even I think we don't think about that as children. Sometimes the children don't know any different, and they take on like, I was telling, I think you this, Butch, Jesus Christ.
Butch.
Yeah.
Butch Dutch.
Yeah, Butch.
I was telling you this, like, I was forced to wear like little like pilgrim outfits because I looked white, even though there were other people dressed like Pocahontas, but that's like my culture. But because I look white, the teacher's like, no, you need to be the pilgrim because you look white. And I was like, but bitch, I'm literally living on the reservation right now. Like, and you having me
She
put
said
the pilgrim?
It's giving pilgrim, wear the costume.
Yeah, she was like, you look in pilgrim, put it on, pale skin. So it was an interesting time because, I'm upset. I'm trying to talk to my mom about it. And I'm like, what is going on? And I think that it's interesting the way we force kids into believing these stories and all of that. And it's special and happy and exciting. And then when they grow up, they have to be like, what? Because my son even recently was like, wait, what about your history? Like even my own child was like, wait, what? And so we started reading all this stuff. My daughter's looking into Indigenous stuff because she's technically 1/4, not one little 16th. Not a drop, none of that. Like she's literally like a high percentage for even colleges to give her registration. So she was like looking into it and the trafficking of Indigenous women and the violence against them lately. She's been looking into all of that. And she's like, my school taught me nothing about this culture, nothing close. So I can understand where like a lot of what
Indigenous people are killed at a higher rate by police than even Black Americans are, which is almost never reported. So it's, it's just pretty fucking disgusting. And wait, by the way, till Columbus Day, because the dig on Columbus Day we're going to have a lot of fun with Chris. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kimberly. Finish your thought.
No, it wasn't important. Like, not
question.
at all.
Question: do we see assimilation in the same light as we see indoctrination? Because I
think we're indoctrinated by the ideas of assimilation. That's the thing, and that's kind of like where this is headed. Is that we have been taught to believe a certain thing about what is appropriate assimilation. Now there's a spectrum there, but and different groups sit at different places upon that spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to let's go back to elementary school, first grade, kindergarten. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I mean, that, if you ever really listen to that, I mean, and me going into the military, the oath you take to go in the military, it's so very similar. And that Pledge of Allegiance is so very similar to what the Nazis had their children do in school in uniforms, pledging a flag and pledging allegiance to Hitler. It's so parallel that it's almost disgusting. I mean, how can you have a child who doesn't even understand it? He's pledging his allegiance to this flag and the country for which it stands. That's a huge thing to have a child who doesn't understand what he's saying do.
And it's forced. So, and yes, by the way, on audio, you are hearing a cricket. Dino is outside. But he is a dinosaur after all.
But it's that Georgia backwinds.
Yes, sir. They about to vote in Herschel Walker. Hope not. But anyway, so all right.
That's okay because he's got 52 states in spray.
Yeah, there's 50.
He's got spray. He wants to blow some air from the dirty air from China and get some from Alaska to cool off the United States. He's so smart.
Dino, you're gonna have to own that one. Y'all like him, but
I played football at the University of Georgia.
He should have just stopped. He could have just.
I don't even know what CRT is. They want to CRT our children. I don't even know what that means.
He should have just stopped with that, and his campaign would have probably gone better.
He kept telling me I have CRT. That's CTE, sir. Yeah. CTE, sir.
So it's really CRS. Can't remember shit. He's got
it's AAH, Actual American History. But but you're all right. The last sentence again, just kind of remind the audio listener. Is again, we were talking about how the faith and flag Republicans, assimilation runs deeper. They want you to relinquish all your ties to the old country, even cuisine, etc. The reason why that they are that is because of, let's call it a fact. It's this concept of white fragility. After all, I have to be comfortable if I decide to come over to your house. So you better have hot dogs and apple pie. Okay. So while that's not true of everybody, it seems to be a general statement. For yet others, the whole idea of assimilation is wrong-headed, and integration, a dynamic process that retains the connotation of individuality, is seen as the better model. Indeed, America is not a melting pot. It is closer to a salad where each ingredient keeps its flavor as it mixes with others to create something amazing, like Asian fusion. See, Asian fusion is awesome. Case closed. Since 9/11, this has really boiled over and finally went mainstream in 2016 as those on the conservative right wing decided that masking their bigotries was no longer necessary, that the veil of plausible deniability began to get thinner and thinner and thinner, thanks to one man. We are, quote, we are a country where people of all backgrounds, all nations, all nations of origin, all languages, all religions, all races can make a home, end quote. That was Hillary Clinton during the 2016 campaign. Another quote, not everyone who seeks to join our country will be able to successfully assimilate, end quote. Donald Trump during the 2016 campaign 2 days later. Clearly, the latter idea won out and has found a new champion in not only Trump, but the prestigious Tucker Carlson.
Fuck him.
Mother Tucker's message is so mother-tucking clear that it's used by white supremacists to keep their messages mainstream. The assimilation is a matter of identity. Nothing short of the abandonment of all traces of your heritage will do to Tucker. And even then, you're still an outsider, but a useful one insofar as the right wing has discovered that the best way to combat those of us who think more progressively is to have members of the outgroup amplify their message. Hello, Larry Elder, Candace Owens.
Pause for 1 second.
Sure.
Does Tucker Carlson think that what does he think about going into New York and getting rid of Little Italy?
Well, that's the thing. He uses that in his arguments.
Yeah.
You know, Tucker is very intelligent in his hate. Right? Like, that's the thing that makes him so dangerous. And that's why white supremacists will literally, they watch the show twice. They watch it once to watch it and twice for the study to amplify the message.
He's definitely methodical. I mean, I think anybody can see that in his cadence, the way he speaks, the terminology that he uses. I mean,
logical fallacies. That's that he lives
exactly. And if you even if you are someone who teaches public speaking, the way a person holds themselves, talks, they emphasize words. He has that down. So I think the psychology comes into that, and I think that's where we get into the dangerous. Yeah, this dangerous side of the psychological side of the media, where they're allowing him to get up there and repetitively, you know, everybody watching him, they know what he's going to sound like each time. There's no surprises are going to come from Tucker Carlson. They feel comfortable in listening. They feel comfortable watching him. They feel comfortable at what he's going to say next. And then there's almost an excitement of whatever he's going to amp me up on something else, something that could be so minor. He amps up to some other level. So I think that's another part of his power, is that he is extremely intelligent, but it's also the methodical side. There's a method to his madness, because as me, I watched it the first time and I was like, this dude's batshit fucking crazy, until I watched it a couple times to read him. And I was like, oh, I'm picking up the game. I'm getting it. He does it for the attention. But the people who love him, though, they don't think there's any malice to it. They're sitting there going, wow, he's like bringing us the truth. And that group of people, they haven't had a voice for so long that they feel like someone's speaking for them.
Yeah.
I think he's the port in the storm to them, because he tells them all this bad stuff and he's like, I'm just here to be intellectual about stuff. Like, oh, good.
I'm just asking questions. What's wrong with asking questions?
Yeah. Oh, good. The thinking guy's here. He can explain all this away from me. It's like, you don't fucking know shit. You're just reading a fucking prompter. And I'm sorry, Tucker is not smart. He's very dumb. If he was smart, he would find a way to, like, morally and ethically make money. But bereft of all those things, yeah.
He doesn't have to. He's the Swanson era.
Yeah, I was going to say, being smart does not mean the other. One is not exclusive to the other. Like, smart people
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
No, you said if he was smart. You said if he was smart, he would find a way to make money ethically and whatever. But, like, I've met a lot of fucking intelligent drug dealers, but they chose to be a drug dealer over something else because that was better for them. That doesn't make them not intelligent.
Why I feel like you know everybody, Kimberly. You know every single body. I'm like, you got a friend in every walk of life.
She's
lived in different states.
Like she really does.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I know. Now you on the drug dealers. I'm like, wow.
We do.
Jerry Springer was very smart, and he was smart enough to make money off of people's pain. You know, Maury's smart, but he's
actually about Jerry Springer. Jerry Springer was actually a lawyer for a long time. He was a judge, and he was the mayor of Cincinnati. And in fact, he tried to run a Senate campaign, but he got caught up in a massage parlor where he was not so smart and paid with a check.
Yeah, he wrote a stripper a check, something like that. Yeah,
they posted the check that he wrote them on the wall, and then when it got rated, then they figured out who it was. And in his campaign for the Senate race, I believe he said, "I'm honest enough to tell y'all the truth about what happened," and he came clean. Yeah. People really liked him. He got a TV show out the deal, so I don't think that's a not smart person. I'm gonna go back on that.
That's why Deshaun knew not to write a check. He paid in cash.
Yeah, and then
like your boy Jesse.
Oh, God.
Oh, Jesse.
But going back to it, what I don't understand is when someone says I'm German Irish American, or I'm Irish American, I'm Italian American. We don't see the Tucker Carlson saying, "Hey, you got to give that up, dude. You just got to put the American on. You got to give all that up."
No, you don't
You're
see
American first.
When you see the I'll give you an example. Conor McGregor fans, right? And people
Fuck
who
Conor
are
McGregor.
people who are MMA fans. When you have an Irish American who, and yeah, the Irish had a checkered history in this country. It was treated very poorly. Nobody's saying they weren't. But today, if you have an Irish flag, or you have a place that says, on the side of the building, Moimi po Polsko, we speak Polish here, you don't see that triggering people really ever. But you'll see people triggered by just people speaking Spanish at a Mexican restaurant.
To their family at their own table.
Right. You'll tell a Mexican, or an Asian person, why do you, or even a black person who might, be wearing some ethnic garb, why are you flying that? Don't you love America? But like, if an Irish person has an American flag and an Irish flag next to each other, oh, that's just normal. But a Mexican flag and American flag, oh, they should just assimilate. So it's hypocritical. I'll push on a little bit here. About almost done here. So according to one study on something called mobility gains, we have little to no evidence that demonstrates whether an immigrant's assimilating to a dominant culture causes changes in the perception of those who were born in the dominant culture towards the assimilator. A phenomenon that rears its ugly head in this is called Great Replacement Theory, a baseless theory that claims that whites are purposely being replaced by other ethnic groups. By the by, the number of whites in America has increased over the decades, as pointed out by sociologist Milton Gordon. The cultural assimilation of ethnic groups into mainstream American society did not affect their systemic separation. So I guess if someone is running a cabal to replace white people, they're doing, if the deep state is trying to replace us, they're doing a pretty bad fucking job at it. Gordon notes that limited integration of the immigrants into the occupational hierarchy, political offices, and even social cliques has been stagnant, if not stopped. So I'm going to repeat that because it's an important point. So Gordon again says that the cultural assimilation of ethnic groups, I don't want this to be lost in my choppy reading. The cultural assimilation of ethnic groups into mainstream American society did not affect their systemic separation from the society. He noted that limited integration of the immigrants into the occupational hierarchy, such as political offices, social cliques, etc., was slow. So, yeah, they assimilated to Americanism, quote unquote, but not into corporate office jobs or political office. And you can see this by looking at Congress and the fact that we're just now getting brown-skinned people in office. So, in closing, to what degree should people assimilate? Well, and this is mostly my opinion, this last paragraph, to the amount that they feel they want to individually. If one person, however, chooses to move from Mexico, change his name from Jose to Joe, give up speaking Spanish and fly an American flag, that's fine. But Joe should not be seen as a standard bearer for the next Jose we meet. Of course, you should not come here and abuse or murder people. That goes without saying. You shouldn't do that anywhere else. It's a dumb argument. It's reasonable to put some effort into learning a local language for safety reasons, such as reading signs or knowing what is in a contract you might enter into, and maybe for interacting in business. But what is unreasonable is to be told that you still can't be more comfortable using your first language and prefer to use it whenever you can. Lastly, to assimilate into something that is neither defined, and this is Gordon speaking again, to expect people to assimilate into something that is neither defined or has remained static over time is odd. It is power that has remained static, not culture, and we should treat people as what they are. People.
one thing that's kind of upsetting whenever we have this conversation, I think we do, because words matter and language matters, there's a lot of assuming. There's a lot of presupposition. Like, we're assuming America, right? Like, we're not assuming because it works on both sides of the coin, but I hate every time I talk about it, but maybe that's just because we're talking about America, where white is the presumed majority. Because white is not the majority. It's not the majority on Earth. It's just the majority for us in this country, watching our media, living our lives. That's the majority for us. But that's not in fucking China. They don't have the same rules for everything and the same hang-ups with their societies that we do, because they don't have to deal with white people. They didn't have to deal with slavery. They didn't have to deal with all this stuff. So it's just, for me, I want to remind myself, as long as everybody else, we don't have to talk about this in just America-ese, right? Because we do have some international people watching, and that didn't happen there, or it didn't happen the same way. No, I don't think anybody should assimilate anything past what they're comfortable with.
Right.
And if people want to say, you know what, I'd like for this to be if people want to keep things exclusive to them. Like, I was cringing my ass off all those fucking hakas I kept seeing on fucking Sports Center. I'm like, yo, what is happening? Now you got a whole gang of drunk British dudes doing the haka. I'm like, yo, I don't think this is what they meant by assimilating in, right? That doesn't give everybody else carte blanche to just take over somebody else's culture and say, aha, good job assimilating, because that happens too. I think everybody should be able to maintain their shit and still ask permission if you're going to be going into other people's spaces.
And we'll just go round robin here. Let everybody kind of give their paragraph on what their thoughts are on this. Robinette Biden.
Oh.
Yes. We'll go round Robinette Biden. Let's do Marisa, Attorney Anna, Kimberly K, and then Dino. Let's do that order just for the heck of it. Attorney Anna, you're on mute.
Oh, I wanted to pause for myself. I need to break. I'm thinking about stuff. I'm just I'm bringing my thoughts together.
We'll circle back to you.
Circle back, yeah. Yes.
Okay. I'll go. I was saying I have to go soon. So it's late where I'm at. I gotta work in the morning, y'all. It's crazy.
Go ahead.
But I was just gonna say on that it's unfortunate that people feel the need to do that, or that they have to do that, because sometimes it's not even a need, right? Like when you talk to a lot of folks who are immigrants from wherever nation that they have immigrated from, sometimes it's, I'm changing these things about myself so I can survive. I'm changing this about myself so I can get a job. I'm changing this about myself so I'm not met with violence. I'm changing this about myself so that so that I don't suffer some type of tangible negative experience just to be able to exist in wherever that I am. So yes, I guess the overarching theory, and I agree with both Mikey and Dutch, people should not have to assimilate more than they want to. But the reality is that folks are going to be treated differently if they don't. And that's really the heart of the issue, is that even if you were to, let's just say, keep your foreign name or keep whatever customs that you have going, people are attacking you, people are harassing you, people are bothering you, for speaking your language and things like that, to the point where some folks don't even teach their kids their native tongue because they are the harassment and violence against them is just so prevalent and enduring that
they don't want them to have an
it's
accent.
And it's just and that's what it is that you don't want to be othered, because being other could be the cost of that is social opportunities, economic opportunities, whatever type of other opportunities. So
and it's important to note what you just said real quick before you finish. They did that for a reason, because they experienced it themselves, so they didn't want their kids to go.
Yes, that's exactly true. I wanted to add to that too. Being Mexican, I see my family's always been. Well, my father has been proud and has he taught us we learned how to speak Spanish. But majority of the people that I know that are of the Hispanic race, their parents didn't want to teach them because exactly what Attorney Annalicious said is because
Annalicious.
I love how y'all just added that on there. I'll take it.
She gave you a promotion. You should not, the closing statement really for me is you should not be belittled by who you are or where you are from. It is not your fault, nor your good or bad, who you were born to. Everybody was born to a mother and a father. We had no choice whether they were angels or devils.
And you have no choice of whether you were born a male or a female. You have no choice of who you choose to love. And I'm adding that to it too, because it's humanity.
No, and that's good that you did, because gay people are also meant to assimilate into straight culture. You know, they're called, they get accused of grooming.
You're sexualizing the children.
Yeah, for saying love whoever you want. While on the other side of the coin, we raise our kids to say, you're going to marry a nice girl someday, and you're going to be, meet yourself a nice Christian girl. That's literally grooming. But anyway, real quick, let me push to Attorney Anna to finish off, because she's got to roll up. Finish off your thought.
Oh, yeah, that was basically it, is that I think that as people, if you're I don't want to say native, but a natural born American, being cognizant that people are having those experiences where they might feel the pressure to assimilate, and allowing people to, to be able to speak in their native tongues and to ask if you have questions, legitimate questions, to be able to talk about that with folks and make them feel seen. Like, we don't have to put our differences to the side so that everybody can share the same things that they have in common together at the same time. We definitely don't have to do that. And I think that places and spaces that allow for people's independence and individuality are better spaces for that reason. So that's all I have to say.
Oh, I agree. All right, you're out of here, right?
All right, bye, guys.
I just wanted to add to Anna's stuff. So as she leaves, I wanted to say, I think it's sad that it is the reality that it isn't, should people have to assimilate? It's people do have to assimilate. Like, we know that they do, because of the reality of what's happening. Like Anna said, and Mikey was talking about. The only point that I have in this, and there's so many rabbit holes that we could go down, but I look at from the reality standpoint. I wish that I could say, I don't want people to feel like they have to assimilate. And I really do mean that. I don't want people to feel like they have to. Coming from my own native culture and seeing that as a dying culture and what happened there, it's sad. One of the things that we should be asking more often is, what is the reality that people are actually facing? And that is what Mikey and Anna brought up, which was people do have to assimilate because they're forced to, based on socioeconomics, job offers, how they're going to be treated. So in theory, I would love to say, no, they shouldn't have to. In a wonderful, progressive world, we could just say, stop treating people that way. Stop not giving them the jobs. Stop not giving them the opportunities. But we do have to admit that some people are going to, where they're born, where they're raised, where they are at this point, they are. Now, I'm not saying they have to, but I'm saying that they're going to feel the pressure to assimilate, regardless of whether we should tell people they should or not. They're going to feel the pressure to anyway. And so I think that bringing awareness is one thing, but also there has to be some action behind awareness. So we could sit and we can talk about the awareness and what people should and should not have to do, but there's an action that has to be formed. We have to, and this podcast is that, right? We're speaking about it. We're talking about it. We're showing up. We're having the hard conversations. The other podcasts are going to do that. But as we go out into our own societal communities, we have to be the ones that are leading those conversations in a classroom. If you're able to with students, if that's allowed, if you're able to with your own children, if you are able to with a neighborhood group, that you're able to have a conversation about these topics, and saying that the person that's Middle Eastern at the end of the street, you're annoyed at the things that they do for their culture. They have little parties, or they have long weddings, or it smells like curry all the time. So fucking what? Your shit smells like barbecue all the time. So I think that it's important to,
or onions.
Just make sure that, or whatever, cilantro, it's just
no, cilantro is a good smell.
Yeah, they all, well, curry is too. And so I think it's important depending on who you are and where you've lived. For me, I'm like Marisa said, and Anna, talked to me before the thing. I have lived 1,000 lives technically. I don't know if it's my autism or just this insatiable need to go somewhere else, evolve, be something else. Or my parents throw us in so much stuff. And then trying to find my place in who I was in religion and culture, and growing up how I did. I talked to Dino about this. Sometimes people will say things like, well, how do you know anything about Black culture? And it's like, well, 99% of my high school was Black. Don't know a lot about Black culture, but I know how people interact with me. So when people are racist and they say, you don't know how all Black people are, and I'm like, I don't, but I know that I grew up in a really thick culture that isn't anything like what you're portraying.
Right.
And so we have to make those comments. We have to have the hard conversations as a follow-up action to the awareness. So it's great to speak about it. And in an ideal world, I have a mixed partner. I live my own world, but I present as white. So I have to know that from the jump, I'm going to present as white. My behaviors have to be judged as such. My daughter's gay. So there's a lot of overlapping community situations in our own home. And I have to tell my own kids, it sucks to watch my friends that have Black children have different conversations on how they have to engage with police and stuff like that. Things that I have that privilege, of not because I chose it, but because it is just the way I look and the way my kids look. I never thought of the same conversations, never thought of the same concerns and worries until the world started looking the way it was and I started seeing realities. And it's sad to see that, but as my own daughter being in the gay community and my son having to stick up for her a lot too, and already my partner has had 2 PTSD situations because he didn't assimilate.
But Alan Ellison, much like Obama, speaks in a way where you don't think of it as quote unquote Black when you are Joe Schmo in the middle. So a guy like him is easy, and this is not a dig on Alan, but he would have an easier time than someone who speaks more with like a slang, right? With like a street slang. And that is the problem that we're aiming at. This has nothing to do with Alan Ellison at all. He is an example here of the fact that because he is as articulate as he is and as soft spoken as he is and comes off, well, yeah, but you can be educated and not speak like that. So, you can be educated and speak with a Taiwanese accent. We would not, most Americans would not be as receptive to that as they are to Alan. And that's one of the reasons why he's doing so great. But he also realizes that just because he does that, other people don't have to speak the exact same way that he does, and that really is where the caveat is at, because you should not have to reach an Alan Ellison level of articulation to be taken seriously as a human being.
True. I agree with that too.
So, bilingual doesn't necessarily mean accent, right? But I think that some people are more adaptive. They're more agile. I learned this through my autism journey, that being autistic, a lot of us, we mirror behaviors. So that's why some of us sound different. We move different. We watch people and that's, we assimilate. That's, if you're high functioning, high passing, whatever it's called, it's code switching. Basically, when you're watching something and you're picking up that to assimilate into that, I see it in my world being autistic. I have been able to adjust into whatever setting I'm in. If somebody from corporate America that I worked with did something, I sat the same way. I turned the same way. I mirrored them. Right. I did exactly what they wanted, and that worked. But that's not everyone's abilities are not exactly locked into that.
I just want to point out that autistic people and people who are trans specifically also, like, they get it from different reasons, from different sides. Like, trans people, like, they kind of unassimilate, like, fuck this, why have I been assimilating into being a binary person when I'm a non-binary person? Mm-hmm. And then they say, oh, maybe I want to wear a women's dress. Oh, you can't wear that at Target. You might trigger a customer. That's fucking bullshit. And with autistic people, as a father, I can tell you that we get a lot of 95% of people that we interact with my autistic son are super understanding. They see right away, okay, that kid's autistic. But every once in a while, you'll get someone, especially on an airplane or an airport, how come you just can't control your child? You know, why do you let him jump? You know, why is he jumping on the seats? Can't you stop him? No, because you want to see the Steven when I stop him from jumping on the seat, your ears will be blown out from the screens. Yeah. Okay. He is stimming. That is what they call it in the autistic community. All right. Dino, you're closing the show. Take it home.
Okay. I'll address this from several levels, from a spectrum level, from a cultural level, because we're talking about cultural assimilation, right? So I'm from Washington, D.C. I went to college in Kentucky. I'm black. The black people I met in Kentucky are nothing like me. Their culture is entirely different than mine. I'm nothing like them. So in order to blend in, did I do some assimilating? Yes, I did. So I do feel that in this nation, individuals should learn to assimilate, no matter what your culture is. No matter if you come here from Africa, from England, if you come here from, if you're Native American, whatever it is, be who you are, genuinely, okay? Carry your culture with you, but you gotta meet me somewhere. You gotta join me in a love for this thing that we're building together. This thing we call America. You gotta join me in that. If you are here and you hate America, if you are here and you hate Americans, I can't get with you. And I don't mind disagreeing, but please join me in the love for this thing that we're building together. So yes, I need you to meet me halfway. So assimilation in that, don't come here if you're a Russian citizen, don't come here and still love the motherland as your first home if you're coming to make this your home. So our citizens, they take that, when you become an American citizen, you take that oath that you will place this country first. And I believe in that. I believe you should. I used to live in Washington, D.C. I got really fond memories of Washington, D.C. I'm never going to live there again. I'm a Georgia citizen. I love Georgia. I vote in Georgia. I raised my kids in Georgia. So I've assimilated to being a Georgia. I still have traits from being in Washington, D.C., my habits and things like that. But I've assimilated to the life that I live here now as being a citizen of the state of Georgia. So I believe if this country is going to be successful, I believe assimilation has to happen for people who come here. So this is where me and the Republicans, we can see eye to eye. That's why I like to talk to them. I want to hear what they say because we see eye to eye on this issue. I can't have you here and you love that other country, more than you love this one. Because if something should ever happen and you got to choose sides, I need you choosing my side. What this American experiment is. We're still defining it.
But that's what I'm saying is like, if we're still defining it, and there's like at the beginning you said, we can't even give people the roadmap to what America is, right? But now you're saying, I need you to meet me halfway because I'm making this thing America. But every single person is going to give you a different idea of what America for them is going to look like and should look like, from Republicans to Democrats. Even within the Republican place, they're going to tell you what it's going to look. It's going to look differently. So how I'm asking more as like an actual act of action. Who's going to determine what America looks like? How much is too much of your culture and not enough of your culture? And how much is, me being really patriotic and not enough over here? How much of the culture do I have to assimilate to? Because if I can't get rid of my accent that is from the old country, how much of that is going to be used against me? There's so much that I'm just saying, like, I'm throwing out as a contrarian, not disagreeing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But more who decides it, basically?
Well, here's the thing.
They're saying all of us isn't going to work because we're literally watching it break down. There's two sides of the country now.
This is another part of the agreement. If you come here, you got to agree to participate in the process. Like, you can't come here and complain about America and not vote. Can't come here and complain about America, especially in local elections and things like that. You can't come here and not do some kind of civic action, some kind of civic
Americans
duty.
complain about America and don't vote. So you see what I'm saying?
Exactly,
like,
and that's the problem.
From
I don't agree with that at all. I'm an
Like,
American.
people from
I have
Russia-
I have certain rights and privileges. That's a right, not an obligation. I'm not obligated to vote. I have a right to vote.
There's no rules. That's what I was going to say, what Mikey says.
Yeah,
but Mikey, I'm going to tell you what. I have to tell you, you have an obligation of vote.
No, that's
you have an obligation.
You are currently trying to indoctrinate people
for
something that you see is good. For something that you see is good. I'm not saying that it's a negative thing for people to vote. I agree that people should vote, but I'm not obligated to do anything in this country. Right? Like, I don't have to do anything for anybody. As a citizen, I have the right to do nothing. Right? I have the right. That's also baked into the formula. So participation can't be part of it if your individual liberties and freedoms are at the core issue, right? So I cannot be compelled. I cannot be coerced.
And this is where I see that the forefathers failed us, because I believe it should be your obligation to participate in building this thing. If it's yours, it's like living in a house and not cleaning it.
Well, the forefathers didn't write it that way because they didn't intend for everyone to vote. They only intended for
I was gonna say,
they definitely didn't write it, and they definitely didn't write it for you to be able to say that sentence.
That's true.
I don't want to see everybody voting though. That doesn't know what they're voting for. That's a big question in my world. A lot of times is like, until I educated myself, I didn't vote. Like on my 18th birthday and the election came around, I didn't vote. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, you didn't vote. And I was like, because I don't know what I'm voting for. I need to educate myself. It took me 3 to 4 years to understand the parties, to understand what I was looking at, to understand the lining of my value system. So if I would have gone and just voted because it was the right thing to do, I would have voted Republican because that's what my family said to do, my faith said to do. So I don't believe that everybody should feel like they need to go run out and vote immediately at every election if they don't know what they're voting for.
Exactly, and that's where
vote on party lines.
Yeah, that's where our education system has failed us. Once again, this. But, Dino, we needed a better design, and like that's what I'm saying. Well, yeah, I'm talking about going forward though.
But brother, you're arguing. Design. You're making an is versus ought argument, right? So like in theory, I agree with what you are saying, right? Like if I were going to move to Peru, I would bring a lot of what I am now, but I would say, okay, I'm going to move to Peru and I am making the choice to move to Peru, and therefore I'm going to participate in the Peruvian system to try to make that system better. I don't think that there are very many immigrants who are coming here saying, well, I want to make the American system worse. Okay. They're not coming here and saying, well, I want to destroy America, or I'm going to America because I hate America. Those people don't come here, with the rare exception of someone who's coming here for a terrorist attack that the right wing will have you think is like every other person. Okay. So you're coming here because of the fact that you see there's a vision and you want to do something.
People are coming here for the bag. People want the cash. They want this. This is the land of capitalism, not freedom, capitalism, where you can make money off of anybody doing anything.
Right.
They're here for the bag. This experiment, I get the experiment part of it, and how we're supposed to be growing together. Ain't nobody trying to grow right now.
But what do people across the world, Dino, what do people across the world see? What culture do they see more than any other culture that they're not a part of? Ours, through television and media, right? Mm-hmm. Like you see everything from I Love Lucy to The Cosby Show to Stranger Things, going all like they see American culture. And very rarely do we televise the bad parts of American culture because our media has been warped to the point where it is mirroring the systemic ideals that they want you to see. So when someone sees that, they're not going to come here and say, oh, well, that fucking really sucks what I saw on Magnum PI. So I really want to go there and be a part of that, right? Like, I'm not going to watch a movie about, for example, the movie about Hotel Rwanda, right? Like, that didn't urge me to go move to Rwanda. Blood Diamond did not urge me to move to Somalia.
But we are living in a way now that, to be quite honest, I have a ton of friends that live overseas and Twitter Spaces. They will get in Twitter Spaces and say, no way in hell do I want to live in America right now. No way in hell do I want to live in the U.S. So we also have this false sense that the other people in the rest of the world see us the way we see us. They don't want to come here. I have a good friend, Bobby. She's been from Albania. She lived in dictatorship. And she's like, I would fucking go back to Albania and live under that before I'd ever go to America. And I truly think that we're very confused sometimes as to how the rest of the world sees us. And I've traveled so many times, and people are like, there's no fucking way I'd move to the U.S. So you have three things going on. You have people that live here, born and raised here, having to decide if they want to be a part of what you're saying, Dino, finding ourselves in that experiment, figuring out who we are. In theory, I agree with you, and I would hope that we could get to that and move forward. But then you have people that are coming here for what Mikey said. That's the other second person. They're coming here because they know that they can get gas stations if they want, or ice plants, or, build hotels with their families and get the money and send it back and build a bigger place where they need to go back to. I have a ton of friends that make money here and send it back to Mexico. You
can get a card that gives you like $10,000.
Exactly.
The credit card doesn't exist.
It's huge for them. They have no desire to live here. I know that you're saying they should. They no desire to live here as what we would say assimilating to and being like kumbaya. They just want to come here, get their shit, and peace the fuck out, live well. Then you have the other person that literally sees us as the land of the free. They see it as that big grand photo that media has, that Jason just said, media plants, and they come here wanting that. And a lot of those people that I've met get here and they have a big rude awakening, and they're like, what the fuck is this? Depending on where they land.
Yeah. So buyer's remorse.
Everybody's coming. Some people come and it's amazing and they're grateful. I met a guy at the airport once and he said, you Americans are fucking spoiled. You're not grateful for your culture. You're not grateful for your freedom. And I kind of understood what he was saying. He's like, I came here. I had no money. I had nothing. I had no shoes on my feet when I came here on a boat. I have built so much for my children. They're so grateful. They are so happy with what they have. They don't complain. They don't act like they're entitled. And I was like, oh shit, he's really, really into this. But what he said was, Americans think that they have all the rights to do whatever and say whatever. And there's parts that I agreed with, some I didn't. But it taught me that he did not see America the way that some of the other people that have migrated or emigrated here do. So my question was, in the reality of now, what we should do versus what we have to do right now. That's kind of what I was getting at, because I agree with the theory of what you say, and that we talk so much that I do. But I get worried sometimes that we can't get where are we right now? What's the next step to get there? And I think that's where Democrats at times get fucked up, because Republicans are going to be Republicans. They go Republic all day long. Doesn't matter what it is. Whoever tells them this is the way that we keep going forward, they will keep doing that. But on the Democratic progressive side, we can't fucking seem to get one plan together because there's 17. And we can't get the same thing that the Republicans are doing. So we're losing. And that just makes me sad.
And we're losing for two reasons. One, because of what we know is that, the people in the middle they're more afraid of us than they are of Trump. But the other thing is that we're a diverse party, right? Like, so we have different coalitions, different ethnic groups, different cultural groups, different racial groups, different people of different socioeconomic status. Republicans have white people and a few other dots in there, right? And it's all corporate sponsored and everything like that. And it's church based, basically.
They assimilate like no other.
And they assimilate like no other, right? Like you and Marisa will tell you, we've had this conversation before, where like you have well, before I get to that, let me just touch on one thing Kimberly said. The guy who Kimberly was talking about, who was like, why do people come here and that, you don't appreciate what you have? He's saying that, no disrespect to him, I'm proud of the guy, but he's saying that because he built a life. For every one of him, there's 100 failure stories, right? Like we always hear about the success story. We never hear about the failure stories. Okay. Yeah. Those are like, well, that's the exception. Wrong. The exception is the success story. Okay. Yeah. But secondarily, Marisa and I have talked a lot about the fact that like you have two different Hispanic cultures within the United States of America. You have the white identifying Hispanic that we have a lot of in California and a lot in Texas. And you have the Hispanics from everywhere else, right? Yeah. Like, I'm not trying to generalize into those two areas because they're obviously it's more spread out than that. And but, you know, like you have people who are, you know, have given up the Hispanic culture and they might still use like their name might be Jose Reyes, but other than that, and they might look a little Hispanic, but other than that, you wouldn't know that they're Hispanic because they've given up that part of the culture. And that is precisely what the Republican Party wants you to do. And it sounds to me like kind of your argument is along those same lines, because that is not an ideal. That is a choice. You can come here and love America, but criticize her because you love her and you want her to be better, right? And you can come here and be critical of the parts that did not live up to the expectations that you thought you were going to meet when you got here and say, well, I didn't realize this was going to be this. I was expecting this. So kind of false advertising. And it's irritating to me that that's the case. That doesn't mean I hate America. That doesn't mean I'm still not going to do my best. I don't have to talk nicely about every single aspect of this country in order to be fully assimilated into it, right? Like, that's not what America is built on. That's not what our political system is built on. It's built on discourse and disagreement, not conformity, right? You know, and you saw a lot of this with the civil rights movement, you know, where people would say, well, you have to do things in a certain way. You have to do it, you know, don't do it loudly, do it this way. Don't do it right now. Do it. What about the later time? You can parlay a lot of that into this conversation too, because we have, as a system, advertised a particular goal, and that goal is basically to be, for everyone who doesn't look like me has to act like Alan Ellison, otherwise they have fallen short of the dream. So, and that's where the problem is at, right? Because you are a very articulate guy, but there are people who will look at this podcast and be like, look at this fucking gangbanger on here with his fucking sunglasses on, right? Because you don't look the part of what you are saying. They would be wrong, and that would be a small percentage of people that I think would think that. But there are those that will think it regardless, right? You would have a lower chance of winning a political race dressed like you are right now on this podcast than you would if you came out in a suit. That's all I'm trying to say, right? Yeah. That doesn't mean you love your country less. That means you're exuding your identity, and your identity is what makes you unique and you, right? And that is why, you know, I think that it's better that we stay the salad. So I'll let you rebut that, and then I'll let Mikey close out because we're at 3 hours here. So go ahead and, you know, follow up to my statement, and then we'll let Mikey close out the show. So
no, I gotta agree. I agree with a bunch of what you're saying, but I still hold true to the thought that, and my thing is this: I almost never look at where we are now. I'm always looking at what we can become. So I believe that forming a better union takes participation. And it takes definition. And I think, like I said, I believe the framers of this country, they left us with an unfinished product. And the Constitution and everything, these are things that, how they say it, that's a living, breathing document. They didn't know that we were going to last as long as we have. And we're probably going to last quite a bit longer. So why can't we start now saying this is what we are? And everybody gets a voice in that. And that may change. That may grow over time. There was, you know, in the 80s or whatever, 70s, transgenders didn't exist. Now they're part of our fabric. So that fabric is going to be ever changing. And they get a voice as well. But I believe we have to say at our core, what are we? And that has to be defined in order for us to succeed and to become the best versions of ourselves as this thing that we call Americans. I'll cede the floor to Mike.
Yeah, I'll be in Canada soon, so you guys have fun with your little America project. I'm bailing the ship. This rat is out of here, baby.
Every week.
Kiss
Every
my
week.
motherfucking ass. I'm leaving. Fuck y'all and y'all racist ass constitution. Yo, dirty fucking cops. Yo, shitty schools. Your fucking pollution. You're just terrible to fucking every single group for no fucking reason. You don't even know why motherfuckers be mad at shit that's not out yet.
You know, I'm so sick and tired of Mikey never telling us how he really feels.
Nothing make these little ungrateful bitches happy. The most unhappiest people on earth is fucking Americans. And yet they live in the best place on the planet. I'm done. When Mars is open, count me out of here. Until then, y'all can find your boy
you might have to live with Elon.
Mikey just pulled a Kevin Hart. You know when Kevin Hart's mom said, go and say this specifically much to the teacher? And then Kevin Hart said, saggy tit, da-da-da. Yeah. Like, you just pulled that. Like, I literally, you just kept going. You said, with your pollution, your poor schools, like,
America ain't
behavior.
Shit. America ain't shit. And also I have one more thing, because today, 3 years ago, I met my wife for the first time.
Aww.
And I'll clip this out for her later or something, but it was at a Sum 41 concert. But yeah,
I still see that. I see that.
Yeah. The day she made the biggest mistake of her
life. The day she fucked up.
I know she's thinking somewhere, I could have stayed the fuck home.
Yep. She's like, I knew I should have. It was hot as hell that day, too. She's like, man, I should have forgot my suntan lotion. Have to just stay home today. But no, I met my beautiful wife. Kristen, I love you, baby. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Thanks for dealing with me and my me brain. Because you want to talk about nerd vomit. I will fucking nerd vomit about 87 different topics a day. She hasn't left yet. I don't know if it's because I hide her keys every night or what, but she's been sticking around.
I don't know if it's because she's in the closet. And
I don't know if it's because she can't get through the padlocks. But she could have picked anybody else.
Chain, literal.
I thought that's what they meant. But she could have had anybody in the world, and she picked little old me. And I've never felt more special, which was all I really needed in life. So,
that is
my heart.
But anyway, fuck America. Me and my wife will take our beautiful asses up to Canada, where motherfuckers appreciate us, treat us like human beings, protect her fucking reproductive rights. Don't have racist ass, shoot 'em up, bang bang, Yosemite Sam ass motherfucking cops. Not the cops.
Oh, the cops, no, yeah.
I got the fucking Mounties. I got Dudley Do-Right showing up for a fucking DUI. I like my chances.
Dudley,
Mikey, I think you're gonna get lucky tonight.
Dudley puts his.
Yeah, Brendan Fraser comes to pull everybody over. I can live with that. Big, goofy, friendly motherfuckers. I like them. But for all of you that are staying, just know that your fight just tripled. Just know that getting ridiculous people to not only validate people that they don't like, but to protect people that they don't like. Because it has to be everybody. So, unless y'all like it the way that it is, don't just get out there and vote. You need to get out there and run. Because all of the people watching this show, y'all are all about that age now.
Yeah.
You're just about old enough to run. You ain't got to run for president, but you can definitely run for council or school board, because that's what the Republicans did. That's what they started 10 years ago. And now you're turning around like, where all these Karens come from? Oh, they all got seniority over y'all because they've been there this whole time. That Tea Party, they let y'all know exactly what they were going to do, and y'all didn't listen. Well, now
they started as mayors. These Karens started as mayors of their little hometowns in the suburbs, and then they became senators.
You ain't gotta be the boss of everything on the planet, but you can run for something. You can get your own skin in the game if ain't nobody around you. And don't worry about motherfuckers digging into your past and finding that you had a couple of baby daddies and then you had that one trip to Tulum. You know, like that, like that shit is so boring compared to all the
so if you fucking do it, own it. Just own it.
Yeah, you did it, own it. Look at all the shit with Rudy Giuliani. You ain't got nothing as bad as old boy Rudy with his pants down on camera with Sacha Baron Cohen. Like, come on, man. Like, you ain't got nothing that bad. I think Dutch's batteries died. You know those androids have to recharge at night.
Damn androids.
So everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us. There is no humidor today because there's no Big Haas, but I'm sure he'll have a nice one for us next week. So for Dutch, Haas, Marisa, Dino, Kimberly, Attorney Anna, I think that's the whole crew, right? Who am I missing?
That's it.
That's the whole crew.
And everybody who's listening, thank you.
And me. Yeah, so check out the Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and most importantly, we'll see you guys next Wednesday on Twitch. Twitch. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.